The air on the trade station was thick with smoke and the sharp smell of burning fuel. Metal walls echoed with the sounds of shouting traders, clanking machines, and footsteps. Grant, a human mercenary, walked with heavy boots across the dirty floor, his eyes sharp, his hand always near his blaster. He had seen too many betrayals on stations like this. Grant had just completed a mission for an alien named Drogan. The job had been risky deep in the desert lands of a foreign planet, hunting down a group of dangerous raiders. He'd barely made it back alive. But a deal was a deal, and now he had come to collect his payment. Drogan was a tall, slim alien with gray skin that looked like stone. His black eyes never blinked, and his mouth was twisted in a constant, unsettling smile. Grant didn't like him, but he was known to pay well. Inside the dim-lit chamber, Drogan stood waiting, two of his armed guards behind him. "You survived," Drogan said with a smirk. "I must admit, I didn't expect you to." Grant crossed his arms. "Let's skip the jokes. I want my 10,000 credits," Drogan chuckled. "Ah, yes. About that, I have something better for you." Grant's eyes narrowed. "I didn't come here for games." With a wave of his hand, Drogan signaled his guards. They dragged in a small metal cage. Inside, curled up in the corner, was a girl. She wasn't human. Her skin was a soft, glowing purple. Long silver hair flowed down her back, almost shining under the flickering lights. She wore a tight black bodysuit, the fabric strange and elegant, marked with thin lines of glowing blue symbols. Grant stared, confused and a little uneasy. What is this supposed to be? Drogan smiled wider. "She is your payment." "I don't deal in slaves," Grant snapped. "You promised me credits." Drogan raised a hand calmly. "And I give you something worth more than credits. She is unique, obedient, and special. I assure you, she's more valuable than any money." Grant looked at the girl again. She didn't beg, didn't cry, didn't even look at him. She just sat, eyes down, her face calm like stone. There was no fear in her, no desperation like other slaves he had seen. "What's her story?" Grant asked suspiciously. Drogan shrugged. "She was caught during a raid. Quiet thing, never talks. But she listens, she'd be useful to you." Grant didn't like this. Something about her didn't fit. She was too clean, too graceful. Even her posture, even in a cage, was straight and proud. He sighed. "I don't like surprises, Drogan. Consider this a gift," Drogan said, stepping closer, his black eyes shining. "Or you can leave empty-handed." Grant studied the girl. Against his better judgment, curiosity burned inside him. This was no ordinary slave, he could feel it. Something was hidden here, but he couldn't say what. "Fine," Grant said finally. "I'll take her, but if you're tricking me, I'll come back for you." Drogan chuckled darkly. "I'm sure you will." The guards opened the cage, but the girl stood up on her own and quietly followed Grant. No chains, no orders. She just walked with him, head slightly bowed, but eyes glowing faintly. They made their way back to Grant's ship, an old but sturdy vessel called the Nomad. Once inside, Grant stopped and turned to her. "Do you have a name?" he asked. She looked up at him with glowing silver eyes, but said nothing. "Can you speak?" Silence. Grant shook his head. "Great. A mute." He led her to a small cabin. "You'll stay here. Don't touch anything. And don't try to escape. I don't like trouble." She sat on the bed without a word. Grant stood there, watching her, feeling uneasy. She didn't look like a slave. There was grace in the way she moved, calmness in her posture. She didn't look scared or beaten. Something was wrong. Grant left her in the room and went to the cockpit. He checked the registry chip Drogan had given him. Each slave was supposed to be tagged and recorded. But when he scanned it, the screen blinked red. Error. Data missing. What the hell? Grant muttered. He scanned again. Same result. No record. No history. No origin. Grant stared at the screen. then glanced back at the door leading to her cabin. Who was she? Why was she unregistered? Why was she so calm? At night, Grant walked past her room. The door was open a little. He peeked inside. She was sitting by the small window, looking at the stars outside, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dark. She looked lonely. Grant felt a strange pull in his chest. She wasn't like others. She was different. And he knew, deep inside, that taking her was no ordinary deal. She was a secret. And somehow, Grant had just stepped into something much bigger than he had ever imagined, but he didn't know yet. This was just the beginning. Grant didn't sleep well that night. His mind kept circling back to the girl, the strange alien he took as payment. She was too calm, too quiet, and that made him uneasy. Slaves usually cried, begged, or tried to run. But not her. She acted like she belonged wherever she stood. Even on a stranger's ship. When he woke up, Grant checked the ship's sensors. No signs of tracking devices, no hidden signals coming from the girl. Still, his gut told him something was wrong. He decided to check on her. As he walked toward her room, he stopped suddenly. She was already there, standing in the hallway, staring at him. Her glowing silver eyes didn't blink. She didn't speak, didn't move. She just watched him like a shadow. Grant rubbed his eyes. Do you just stand there all night watching people? She tilted her head, her expression calm. Still no words. You're really starting to creep me out. Grant muttered. He turned around and walked to the ship's small kitchen. To his surprise, she followed silently. No footsteps, no sound, just her presence right behind him. Grant sat down and grabbed a food pack, tearing it open. You hungry? She stared at the food, her eyes curious but cautious. Grant sighed and tossed another food pack her way. Eat. If you're going to haunt my ship, might as well not starve. She picked up the pack carefully, like she wasn't sure what to do. She inspected it, then slowly opened it and took a small bite. The way she ate, it was as if she hadn't eaten in days, but she still remained graceful and calm. What's your name? Grant asked again. The girl paused. Then, softly, she spoke for the first time. Alira. Grant's eyes widened slightly. So you can speak? She nodded slowly. I can. Then why stay silent all this time? He asked. Alira looked at him with unreadable eyes. Because I needed to see who you were. Grant chuckled dryly. I'm the guy who just saved you from that creepy alien Drogon. That's who I am. She shook her head faintly. You didn't save me, you bought me. That stung. Even though Grant didn't want to admit it, she was right. He didn't know her story, didn't ask questions. He just accepted her. Why? Didn't you try to run away? He asked. Alira looked away, her eyes fixed on the dark space outside the window. Because running changes nothing. Her answer puzzled him. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't broken like others. She was waiting. But for what? All right, Alira, Grant said, leaning forward. What's your story? Because you're no ordinary slave. She stayed silent again, as if deciding whether to speak more. But then she stood up, slowly walking to the window. Grant watched as she raised her hand. A soft glow formed around her fingers like floating light particles, tiny stars moving in the air. Grant stood up, alarmed. What are you doing? Alira turned her glowing eyes to him. I'm remembering. Grant's hand hovered near his blaster. What kind of power is that? What are you? Really, she didn't answer. Instead, she said, you didn't chain me. I didn't need to, Grant replied. Though now he was starting to think otherwise. She looked at him with a strange sadness in her eyes. Because chains cannot hold royalty. Grant froze. Royalty? What did you just say? He asked, stepping closer. Alira lowered her hand, the lights fading away. You'll see soon enough. Grant felt a chill in his bones. This girl wasn't just some slave. She was hiding something big. Royalty? If that was true, What was she doing in a cage, sold by a scumbag like Drogon? Who are you really, Alira? He asked, but she didn't answer. She simply sat back down, her eyes closing as if she was resting or meditating. Grant stared at her. Thoughts racing. He couldn't scan her, couldn't trace her past, and now she claimed to be royalty. Was she lying, or was he sitting on a ticking time bomb? He left her there and returned to the cockpit, but he couldn't focus. He watched the stars outside, thinking. If she was a princess, someone would come looking for her. If not, maybe he was just stuck with a strange, beautiful girl with a dangerous mind. But deep down, Grant knew one thing: this was no ordinary job anymore. Whatever Alira was hiding, it would soon catch up with them, and Grant would need to decide whose side he was really on. The stars outside the ship twinkled quietly, but inside the Nomad, the air was heavy with tension. Grant couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Alira's glowing eyes, her strange lights, and the words she spoke: royalty. Who was she really? Why was she sold as a slave if she was someone important? The questions bounced around in his head with no answers. Grant sat in the cockpit, staring at the radar screen. They were heading to a quiet border world where he planned to drop her off. Maybe leave her with someone who knew how to deal with strange aliens. He wasn't supposed to babysit royalty or whatever she claimed to be. But deep down, a part of him didn't want to let her go. Suddenly, the radar beeped sharply. A red dot appeared, another ship approaching fast. No signal. No ID. Grant's heart sank. Trouble. He flipped on the external cameras. A dark, sharp-looking vessel flew straight toward them, silent and deadly. It wasn't a trader. It was a hunter. Grant tapped the intercom. Alira, get to the safe room. Now. No answer. He got up, grabbed his blaster, and ran down the hallway. He found Alira already standing in the middle of the ship, staring at the walls like she could feel the danger. "They're here," she whispered. "You knew?" Grant asked, breathless. She nodded. "They've been following me. They always find me." "Then why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't think you would care," she said softly. Before Grant could reply, the ship shook violently. They had been hit. The lights flickered, alarms blared. The Nomad wasn't built for heavy combat, and Grant knew he couldn't outrun them. "We'd need to fight," Grant said, cocking his blaster. "I don't fight," Alira whispered. "I can't." "Then stay behind me," Grant ordered. A loud thud echoed through the ship. The hunters had boarded. The ship's airlock had been forced open. Grant took position near the corridor entrance, his blaster aimed steady. He heard footsteps, heavy and sharp like metal claws on steel. Then he saw them, tall, armored aliens with pale, featureless faces hidden behind masks. Their eyes glowed red through the holes in their helmets. One of them spoke in a deep, mechanical voice. "Give us the girl, human. Walk away and live." Grant gritted his teeth. "Not happening." "Then you will die with her." The aliens raised their weapons. Grant fired first. The laser blast hit one in the chest, knocking him down. The others returned fire. Sparks flew as bullets and beams cut through the air. Grant ducked behind cover, firing back whatever he could. He was fast, but they were many. "Grant!" Alira called softly behind him. "What?" "Don't let them take me." Her voice was desperate now, trembling with fear. "Then help me," he shouted. She shook her head, backing away, tears in her glowing eyes. "I can't. They'll kill me if I use my powers." "What powers?" She didn't answer, just crouched. In a corner, shivering, Grant knew he couldn't hold them off for long. One of the hunters rushed forward, tackling Grant to the ground. The alien raised a blade, aiming for Grant's throat, but before it could strike, a strange hum filled the air. Grant felt a wave of energy sweep through the room, cold and sharp. The hunter froze mid-motion. Then, slowly, the alien's body lifted off the ground. suspended like a puppet on strings. Grant looked back. Alira stood, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her hands were raised, shimmering with blue light. Her whole body was surrounded by a faint aura. She whispered words in a language Grant didn't understand. The hunter began to shake violently, then dropped to the floor, lifeless. The other aliens paused, confused. They stared at Alira in fear. "It's her," one of them hissed. "She's awakened." Alira stepped forward, her voice echoing strangely. "Leave or you will join him." For a moment, the hunters hesitated. Then their leader stepped forward, holding a glowing spear. "No, we finish what we started." Grant shot him twice, but the leader blocked the shots with his spear. The fight raged again. Alira closed her eyes and raised her hands. The air around her shimmered, and then a shockwave of energy burst out, throwing the hunters back. Their weapons flew from their hands. One by one, they fled, dragging their wounded, until only silence remained. Grant stood, breathing heavily, staring at Alira. She collapsed to her knees, exhausted. What was that?" he asked. She looked up, tears on her cheeks. "I told you, I can't fight. If I use my power, they will always find me." Grant knelt beside her. "You just saved my life." She shook her head. "No, I just delayed the end." Grant placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure it out. Together." Alira looked at him, surprised. "You're not leaving me?" "Not yet," Grant said with a faint smile. "I want to know the truth first." Outside the ship, the stars watched silently. But Grant knew more enemies would come, and he was ready for them. The Nomad drifted through the quietness of space. The damage from the attack was bad, but not enough to ground the ship. Grant spent hours fixing what he could. Sparks tools and wires surrounded him, but his mind was somewhere else. Alira. She wasn't just a slave. She wasn't even just royalty. She had powers, something strange, something old. When she used them, she glowed like a living star. But after the fight, she had collapsed, weak and shivering. She hadn't eaten or spoken much since. Grant sat in the cockpit, staring at the empty black space outside, his mind restless. "What are you hiding, Alira?" he whispered to himself. Finally, he stood and walked to her room. The door was half open. Alira sat on the bed, hugging her knees, her silver hair covering her face. She looked so small, so fragile, nothing like the force she had been during the fight. "You okay?" Grant asked, stepping inside. She didn't answer. Grant sighed and sat across from her. "You saved my life back there. Thank you." Slowly she raised her head. Her glowing eyes seemed dimmer now, like a fading light. "I shouldn't have used it." "Your power?" She nodded. "They always find me when I use it. Who are they?" Grant asked, leaning forward. Alira hesitated. Then she said, "Hunters. They were sent by the one who betrayed my family." "Your family," Grant repeated. "You said you're royalty. Is that true?" She didn't speak, but she didn't deny it either. Grant thought for a moment. Then he noticed something on her neck, just under her ear, a faint symbol, almost like a tattoo but glowing slightly under her purple skin. "What's that?" he asked. Alira flinched, covering the spot with her hand. Grant stood up gently. "Relax. I'm not going to hurt you. But I need to see it." She watched him, uncertain, but then slowly moved her hand away. Grant carefully brushed her silver hair aside and saw the mark clearly now. It was a circular emblem with intricate lines around it, glowing faintly blue. "I've seen this before," Grant whispered, "on old star charts." "That's the crest of Velrin." Alira's eyes widened slightly. "That was an empire," Grant continued, "destroyed a long time ago. People said the royal family was wiped out during the war. I survived," Alira said softly. "Barely." Grant stepped back, trying to process it. "So you're the last princess of Velrin," she nodded. I was hidden when the palace was attacked. My people tried to protect me, but someone betrayed us. I was captured, sold, passed from one hand to another, until I ended up in that cage. Grant sat back down, speechless for a moment. He never thought he'd meet someone like this, a living piece of history. But why keep you alive? He asked. Why not just kill you? They fear me, Alira whispered. Because of the power I carry. It's tied to my bloodline. If I die, their control ends. But if I live and gather support, I could reclaim the empire. That's why the hunters want you dead, Grant said. Double quotes. Yes. Alira nodded, her voice breaking. But using my power alerts them. They feel it, like a beacon. Grant rubbed his face. This was way bigger than he wanted. He was just a mercenary, not a bodyguard for alien royalty. But he looked at Alira, sitting there so alone, scared, but trying to stay strong. He couldn't just walk away. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked. Because I didn't trust you, she admitted. I thought you would sell me back to them. Grant chuckled dryly. I probably would have, if I didn't see what they tried to do to you. Silence filled the room. Then Grant stood up. All right, so what now? You keep hiding? Running? Alira shook her head. Running won't save me anymore. I need to find allies. People who still believe in Velrian's legacy. Grant smiled faintly. And where do you plan to find them? In the middle of nowhere? She looked up at him, determination in her eyes. I don't know, but I have to try. Alone if I must. Grant looked away, thinking. He didn't owe her anything. He could drop her off at the next station and be done with this. But something inside told him that wasn't right. You're not going alone, Grant said finally. I'll help you. Alira looked at him, surprised. Why? Because, Grant shrugged. You're the first royal pain I've met who can glow like a star and throw people across rooms. And because I hate bullies. A small smile tugged at Alira's lips. Thank you, Grant, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, he replied. We're just getting started. Outside, the stars shone cold and bright. Somewhere out there, enemies waited. But Grant had made his choice. He wasn't just carrying a passenger anymore. He was guarding a princess. That meant war was coming. The nomads sailed through space, quietly but not peacefully. Grant sat in the cockpit, staring at the endless stars, deep in thought. He wasn't sure why he had agreed to help Alira. He was a mercenary, not a hero. But something about her, the sadness in her eyes, the strength she tried to hide, it made him stay. Alira hadn't said much since she revealed the truth about her, being the last princess of Velrian. She stayed in her small room, sitting by the window, watching the stars in silence. Grant couldn't stand the quiet anymore. He got up and walked to her room. The door was open, and there she was, sitting with her knees to her chest, silver hair flowing around her. You gonna stay silent forever? Grant asked, leaning against the doorframe. She looked up, her glowing eyes soft. What do you want to know? Everything, Grant said, stepping inside. I want the full story. No half-truths, no riddles. Alira nodded slowly. She stood up, walking to the center of the room. She took a deep breath. I was born in the capital city of Velrian, she began. Our empire was ancient, powerful. We had peace, technology, and respect across the galaxy. My family ruled for centuries. Her voice was soft but steady, like she had told herself this story many times. But peace never lasts, she continued. There was a man, General Korath. He was once our strongest warrior, trusted by my father. But he wanted more. Power wasn't enough. He wanted control. Grant listened closely, imagining the betrayal. Korath gathered armies in secret, Alira said, her eyes dim with sadness. One night he struck. Our palace was attacked. My family fought, but they were killed. All except me. Grant frowned. Why did they spare you?" "They didn't," she whispered. "I was hidden by my personal guard. They sacrificed themselves so I could escape. But Karaf's men found me later. They didn't kill me, they sold me into slavery, thinking it was a fate worse than death. He believed I'd disappear, forgotten forever." Grant clenched his fists. "And the hunters?" "Korath sent them," Alira said. "They're not just bounty hunters. They're assassins trained to track me, to ensure I never rise again. And because of my power, every time I use it, they feel it. Like a pulse across space." Grant shook his head. "That's why you stayed quiet, why you didn't fight." "Yes," she nodded. "Every time I fight, they come faster." I was hoping, if I stayed silent, they'd stop looking. "But they didn't," Grant said. "They're still coming." Alira looked down, her voice low. "They won't stop until I'm dead." Silence hung heavy between them. Grant couldn't imagine what that kind of life felt like, running, hiding, knowing death was always close. But then Alira looked up, a spark of fire in her eyes. "But I'm tired of running, Grant. I want to fight back. I want to reclaim what was stolen from my family, from my people." Grant admired that spark, that courage. She wasn't just a scared girl, she was a princess with a mission. "Do you even have people left to fight for you?" he asked. Alira shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe there are survivors, old allies, hidden somewhere. But I can't find them alone." Grant crossed his arms, thinking, "We'll need information. And contacts. I know some people who might help for a price." Alira smiled faintly. "Thank you, Grant." He shrugged. "Don't thank me yet. This road's gonna be messy." Then he asked, "What about your powers? What exactly can you do?" Alira hesitated, then raised her hand. Slowly, tiny lights floated around her fingers, like stars in her palm. "My family's bloodline carries the energy of the old world," she explained. "We can control light, energy, even gravity in small ways. But it drains me. And each time I use it, Karith's hunters feel the disturbance." Grant watched, fascinated. "So you're basically a walking beacon." Alira chuckled softly. "Something like that," Grant smiled. "Then we'll just have to stay one step ahead." Alira nodded, her face more determined now. "I won't hide anymore. If I'm going to die, it won't be in chains." Grant patted his blaster. "Good, because I don't plan on dying either." For the first time, Alira smiled genuinely. A soft, peaceful smile that made her look less like a princess on the run, and more like someone with hope. Outside, the stars stretched forever. But inside the Nomad, two souls prepared for the fight of their lives. They had a mission now. And Grant knew he wasn't just protecting the princess anymore. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. Asterisk. The Nomad cruised silently through deep space, its patched-up engines humming low. Grant sat in the cockpit, running coordinates, while Alira sat nearby, watching him work. The tension between them had shifted. She wasn't just a passenger anymore, she was his mission now. Grant was taking them to a place called the Drift, an old trading station hidden inside a hollow asteroid. It was a dark place filled with smugglers, mercenaries, and people who asked no questions. But Grant knew a man there, a broker named Varlo, who sold information for the right price. "If there's anyone who knows about Korath," Grant explained, "it's Varlo." Alira nodded. "Then we'll find him." When they docked at the Drift, the station looked like a giant dying machine. Rusted metal, flickering lights, and shadows everywhere. Grant walked ahead, his blaster hidden but ready. Alira followed close, her hood up to hide her glowing eyes. They reached Varlo's den, a dark room lit by glowing data screens. Varlo was an old, scarred alien with mechanical eyes that whirred as he looked at them. "Well, if it isn't Grant," Varlo chuckled. "Didn't expect to see you alive." "I need information," Grant said flatly, "and I'll pay." Varlo's eyes scanned Alira. "Who's the girl?" "None of your business." Varlo grinned. Everything's my business. Grant leaned forward. I need to know who's hunting her, Varlo smirked. You're in deep, friend, real deep. But lucky for you, I like credits. Grant handed over a chip. Varlo plugged it in, then pulled up data on his screens. Photos, files, and symbols appeared. There, Varlo pointed. General Korath, former leader of Velran's military, declared himself supreme warlord after the fall of the royal family. Alira's hands trembled when she saw Korath's face, hard, cold eyes, a cruel smile. A face she remembered from her nightmares. He's alive, she whispered. Oh yes, Varlo said. And ruling over a private empire. Controls multiple sectors, fleets, armies, and he's still hunting you. Grant looked at Varlo sharply. How does he track her? Through the bloodline power, Varlo said. Every time she uses her energy, it sends out waves through space. Korath employs seers psychics who can feel that power and pinpoint it. Alira swallowed hard. Then they know I'm alive. They do, Varlo nodded. And Korath's sent his best hunter for you. Grant's eyes narrowed. Who? Varlo tapped a button, showing the image of a tall masked warrior clad in black armor with red markings. The name below the picture read, Malik the Shadow Fang. He's not just any hunter, Varlo explained. Malik was one of Korath's elite, enhanced, modified, nearly unstoppable. Wherever he goes, death follows. Alira's face paled. He's the one who killed my parents. Grant clenched his fists. Then we kill him first. Varlo chuckled darkly. Easier said than done. Malik doesn't stop. And he's already on his way. Grant stood up. We'll handle it. Varlo shook his head. You're either brave or stupid. Both, Grant smirked. Thanks for the help. As they left the den, Alira grabbed Grant's arm. We can't fight Malik, not yet. I'm not strong enough. Grant looked her in the eyes. Then we get you strong. We train, we prepare, and we find allies. But we don't have time, Alira whispered. We'll make time, Grant said firmly. I'm not letting that monster touch you. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the drift. Red lights flashed. A voice on the station speaker shouted, Unidentified ship breaching dock, enemy forces incoming. Grant's heart sank. It's him, Malik. The station shook violently. People screamed and scattered. Explosions rocked the walls. Grant grabbed Alira's hand. We need to move, now. They sprinted through the chaos, dodging debris and running past panicked crowds. Behind them, loud metallic footsteps echoed. Too heavy, too steady. Grant glanced back and saw him, Malik, a giant in dark armor, his glowing red eyes locked on them. He walked slowly, confidently, as if knowing they couldn't escape. Alira, keep going. Grant shouted, turning and firing his blaster. The shots hit Malik's chest but did nothing. The hunter kept walking, his voice deep and cold. Run. All you want, princess. You'll die tired. Grant cursed and fired again, aiming for the head, the joints, but Malik moved like a shadow. Unstoppable. Alira turned, her hands glowing faintly. Grant, run. I'll hold him. No, Grant shouted. Don't use your power. That's what he wants. But it was too late. Alira unleashed a blast of light, knocking Malik back a few steps. But it wasn't enough. He recovered, faster than before. Malik raised his hand, and a dark energy pulse shot from his palm, hitting Alira square in the chest. She cried out, collapsing. Alira! Grant screamed, rushing to her. Malik stepped closer, his voice like steel. Pathetic. I expected more. Grant stood in front of Alira, blaster ready, though he knew it was useless. You'll have to kill me first. Malik chuckled darkly, gladly. But before he could strike, the station shook violently again. A massive explosion erupted from the docks. Someone had sabotaged the entrance, blocking Malik's reinforcements. Grant didn't waste a chance. He scooped Alira into his arms and ran, pushing Threams and debris, barely making it back to the Nomad dot as the ship blasted off. Grant looked back at the burning station. Malik stood there, watching them leave, his eyes glowing like two red suns. "This isn't over," Grant whispered. The Nomad soared away from the burning ruins of the drift, its engines groaning with the effort. Grant sat in the cockpit, one hand on the controls, the other resting on the small medical kit he kept nearby. Inside the cabin behind him, Alira lay still on the bed, unconscious but breathing. Grant glanced back at her, his mind racing. He had faced enemies before, but nothing like Malik. The masked hunter had been unstoppable, like death wrapped in armor. And now Grant knew this wasn't just about Alira anymore. This was a war he couldn't run from, hours past. The stars outside blurred as the Nomad jumped into deep space, far from Korath's empire. Finally, Alira stirred. She groaned softly, her eyes flickering open, the glow faint but alive. "Grant," she whispered weakly. He rushed to her side. "You're okay. You're safe for now." She tried to sit up, but her body was too weak. "I couldn't stop him, Malik. He's too strong." "You did enough," Grant said. "You're alive. That's what matters." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I'm tired of running. Every time I fight, it's never enough." Grant shook his head. "We'll make it enough. I'm not letting that monster win." Alira looked at him, her voice soft. "Why do you keep helping me? You could have left." Grant smiled faintly. "Because I believe in you now. You're more than a princess. You're a symbol. And I'm not letting them snuff that out." Her eyes filled with gratitude. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. "We can't do this by ourselves," Grant continued. "We need allies. I know a place, a hidden colony on the edge of the galaxy. Exiles, rebels, fighters. If anyone's crazy enough to help, it's them." Alira nodded weakly. "Then let's go." Grant helped her rest as the Nomad charted its new course. Days later, the Nomad landed on a rocky, stormy planet called Vespera. It wasn't on any official maps. Only those who had nothing left knew of it. The colony was hidden inside cliffs, protected by ancient defense systems and the harsh weather outside. Grant walked with Alira, who was still weak but determined. The colony looked rough: metal shelters, armed guards, and people with eyes full of caution. They approached the leader of the colony, a stern woman named Captain Rhea, a former military commander who had turned rebel after Korath's rise. "What brings you here, human?" Rhea asked, her hand resting on her rifle. Grant stepped aside, revealing Alira. The moment Rhea saw her, her eyes widened. "It can't be." "I'm Alira of Velran," the princess said, her voice stronger now. "I need your help." Rhea stared, disbelief and hope mixing on her face. "They said you were dead." "I lived," Alira said. "But if I don't fight back, Korath wins. I want to gather those who still believe." Rhea studied her carefully. Then, to everyone's surprise, Rhea knelt. "Your family saved my people once. I'll return the favor. I'll stand with you." Others watched, then one by one, they knelt too. Old soldiers, exiles, even mercenaries. Grant watched silently, feeling pride. She wasn't just a scared girl anymore. She was becoming a leader. Weeks passed on Vespera. Alira trained every day, growing stronger. She learned to control her powers better. She could form shields of light, manipulate gravity, and even heal small wounds. Grant trained with her, teaching her how to shoot, how to fight with her hands. They laughed, fought, and bonded. She wasn't just a mission anymore. She was family. Soon more rebels arrived, answering the call. Word had spread the lost princess of Velren was alive. One night, as the storm raged outside, Alira stood on a high ledge, looking at the stars. Grant joined her. "Thinking about him, Malik?" she asked. "Yes, I can't forget him. We'll face him again," Grant promised. Next time, we'll be ready. Alira turned to him. I'm not afraid anymore, Grant, because I'm not alone. He smiled. That's the spirit. Suddenly, an alarm echoed through the colony. A scout ship had returned from a nearby system with news Koreth's fleet was on the move. They had found Vespera. Grant and Alira exchanged looks. The war had come to their doorstep. We have no choice now, Alira said. We fight. The next day, the rebels prepared. Ships were armed, weapons distributed. Alira stood before them, wearing a simple but regal armor, her silver hair tied back, her eyes burning with purpose. She raised her hand, light glowing softly in her palm. They thought they could erase me. Erase us, but we're still here. And together we will rise. The crowd cheered, their voices echoing across the cliffs. Grant stood by her side, blaster ready. He smiled. You really are a princess. She grinned. Not just a princess, Grant, a fighter. As Koreth's fleet approached in the distance, the rebels prepared to make their stand. Alira had been a slave, a runaway, a shadow in chains. Now. She was a symbol of hope, a legacy reborn, and with Grant at her side, she was ready to reclaim her throne or die trying.